and welcome to BlogtorWho.
Hello.
Happy New Year, everyone. Susan,
Happy New Year.
Peter.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Did everyone have a good festive period?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we did.
Yep, that was very good. Family home. My son was home for a good few days in a row, which was novelty. So it was great to see him, and just generally had a good time.
At the in-laws. Okay. So, or the outlaws, whichever way you want to call it.
Yeah. We're obviously all wearing our lovely Lavazzi product.
Yep.
Yeah, big fan of their Christmas jumper range. Susan, you've
Yep.
got the latest one, which
I got the latest one. Okay. So if you work for BlogtorWho, you get a free. I send out Christmas jumpers for the team. So Christmas jumpers every year. Okay, and not free, but we did get a discount. So thank you very much, Lavazzi. I think I pronounced it right. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it. Have I, Peter?
No, I don't think I've even written for them, and I don't think I've ever heard it said out loud. I've just seen it written down all over the place. So I assume it's something like that anyway. Yep, and the hat is great. Yeah, like Susan said, she's got she sent us all the current one that she is modeling for us with the hat, and there's a scarf as well and everything. So
yeah.
Okay.
Really
Well, I think I'm giving up on the hat because otherwise my brain is going to melt. Okay.
Did anyone have any other
winter hat?
Yeah. Any other Doctor Who Christmas gifts? There we go.
Yes.
We've got 2 mugs.
Yep.
Yeah, I like
There we go. I had the latest animation
Oh, cool.
on DVD. So yeah, some good features.
Yep.
So
I got a few Target books as well, including the new. My wife got me the new hardback Robert Hack illustrated novelization of Rose, which was very good. Actually, we're handily enough getting stuff that we can review at a later date.
We can get around to looking through them.
Yeah.
So Happy New Year to everyone watching live on YouTube now. Welcome. We are going to talk the Church on Ruby Road. Now, Susan, you had the honor of writing the review of this. So do you want to kick us off with your overall impressions on the Church on Ruby Road?
So I thought it was a fun, family-oriented Christmas episode that was great. It was a great introduction to Ruby. I thought she was great, and Ncuti did extremely well as the Doctor. I loved seeing him jump across the Victorian things. He just jumped that very perfectly, and then who sees a ladder in the air and goes, "Babes, let me go for that," or whatever the line was. I thought that's great. But yeah, I thought it was something fun, slightly scary, kind of a fairy tale, as I said, for the Christmas season. So we've done the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We've done the Christmas Carol, and now we've decided to do goblins stealing babies.
Yeah, a bit grim for a Christmas day, but a bit of a change in sort of tone. We've had Daleks the last couple of New Years.
Mm-hmm.
So, Peter, would you agree it's very much a Christmassy episode and nice to have it back on Christmas Day as well?
Yeah. No, I mean, it is nice to have it back on Christmas Day. I do think, I mean, like I defend the previous run on a lot of things, but I do think it was a mistake that they dug their heels in about the New Year's Day thing. I think it was worth trying, because if you look at the way viewing figures were going over a few Christmases, like it looked as if just generally Christmas Day was sort of dying and no one was really watching television on Christmas Day anymore. And New Year's Day was the new Christmas Day. So it was worth trying, but it didn't work. And then they just sort of dug their heels in. So it was very good to have it back on Christmas Day, kind of where it belongs, really. And it was just, it was a super Christmassy episode. It felt quite Christmassy with, babies and a sense of goodwill and family about everything.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. No, I mean, I thought the episode was fine. I wasn't blown away by it. Liked that it was Christmas Day again. It was, something to watch after Strictly and not just turn off the telly this year anyway. Yeah, I think the Goblins were an interesting choice, and I don't think they were perhaps as effective as they could have been, but we'll get into all that. But for me, the standout was Ncuti. First full episode of Ncuti Gatwa as 15. Where should we start with Ncuti? I mean, you've already mentioned the jumping across rooftops and the thing with the snowman falling off the building, which apparently was a late addition based on from Disney. So, and I can completely see that. And we obviously get Ncuti in this short-lived outfit. Just in the hat, just to annoy cosplayers.
So how are you going to cosplay this?
I do feel bad for people that had already run out and bought that costume after it was unveiled as his official costume, and then it turns out to be. I mean, I know maybe it'll pop up again at some point, but it looks as if it was in about 90 seconds of one episode.
I think the jacket will last, but I think that may be about it. Do you know what I mean?
The tweet on like the check on check thing, didn't really work for me. That one that he just wears briefly into the pub, and that's it. I do think the leather coat will last a bit, and they've already started doing that thing that it's quite Tennant like. In that now that they've unveiled a couple more costumes, it's like that coat matched with a different polo top from the same company. Or with trousers that are the same cut, but they're in a different shade of blue. And the trainers that he wears in this episode, he wears the same brand of trainers in a later episode, but in a different color scheme. So like there is starting to solidify like a look of what his silhouette is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I love the jacket though.
Yeah.
I mean, I do wonder if we'll get a sort of timey-wimey. This outfit will be a future 15 watching Ruby or something like that, because it seemed a bit short-lived for this one. I particularly like the hat, to be honest.
Yeah, it might have been simpler. This might have been just the first scene that they filmed, and they were sort of like very eager to get out. Like, oh, this is what the new companion. This is not what the new team's clothes are like. So it was just the clothes they happened to be wearing the first day of filming, maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I know that pub in Cardiff that was used. The Golden Cross pub. So that was slightly weird to see that on telly. But then he shifts to this costume, and we're back in a nightclub. It's all very the War Machines, the Doctor in a nightclub.
The day after that one, wasn't it? Like it was the next day.
Yeah.
Dancing away, already going investigating a little bit. A lot of this reminded me of Rose in a bit, and this was kind of like him searching around for various things and searching around here. So he had a purpose for being in the club. Something was attracting him there, and I suspect it was Ruby in terms of what was slightly off with her.
Yeah, well, I mean, we start off really with Ruby, baby Ruby, being left on the doorstep of the church. We'll talk about the likelihood that we're going to see a bit more of that in future episodes towards the end of the series, upcoming probably. It was quite a nice start, snowy, all that sort of stuff. I thought it was a really nice opening. And then when we do get introduced to real Ruby, she's with Davina McCall.
Yeah.
That's a quick way of getting her background story in without having much. I'm not just spitting it out for story's sake. So what is it? Long Lost Families. She's on there, all right, with Davina McCall. And we get the whole full story, and she's broke. A levels are even got thrown in there too, within the first 3 minutes. I thought it was a good plot device not to spend your time. Here's all the information you need. Bang.
Yeah, so for viewers outside of the UK, Davina McCall, who's on the left of the picture, she is a presenter of lots of different TV shows in the UK, and one in particular, it looks to track down long lost families. It's a program that's not on the BBC; it's actually on one of the commercial stations. So immediately, although it, there was this connection, it's not a show that I've ever watched. You got the premise of, okay, long lost family, abandoned as a child. Is there anything they could do for DNA and all that sort of thing? So that was our introduction to Ruby. And I mean, I'll say it, I thought Millie Gibson was great. I thought she was a nice breath of fresh air for the show. And as the new companion, I thought she had a really strong opening. Peter, what did you make of Millie and Ruby?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought Millie was great in it, and I think Ruby is a character with a lot of potential. I did feel like we've hardly touched the surface on her. We hardly know her yet. We've been introduced to her and her family dynamic and her history. It doesn't feel like we know her as a person an awful lot yet. I mean, if you go all the way back to Rose, it feels like with Rose, we knew exactly why she would want to travel with the Doctor. We could tell that like she was sort of like bored and felt held back by the life that she had. You don't really get that with Ruby. You don't have that clear sense of who she is and why she wants to travel in the TARDIS. But like she's a really charming, compelling character. Like she's fun to be around, which is kind of what you want at this stage, I think, just to inject them into the story and have a bit of fun with it.
Susan, I mean, for me, she feels a bit like Clara did, that sort of initial setup of there's a mystery behind her. Do you think that kind of adds to it, or was she strong enough as Millie Gibson as an actor and as a performer to engage you anyway?
She engaged us without anything much. This is a short, quick episode. It's an hour long. Clara's was kind of spun over several of them. In a sense, she had several introductions. Clara did. I think she had more introductions than anybody else, right?
Okay.
So we got to know Clara a lot more before she became a companion. Whereas this case, it's more Ruby is a plot device as well as being a companion. So she's got a mystery behind her that obviously the Doctor was looking at and trying to figure out because he went specifically looking at that pub twice. He wasn't just there. And I think she's great actress, etc. I think the plot didn't allow anything more for us to find out about her. And as to why she joined in the TARDIS, I think the only thing I could say with that is she certainly has a sense of adventure to her, because who would jump on a ladder like that to start off with? Okay. Yes, I think there's more to introduce her, but I think he's got way too much planned for her as a character in terms of her backstory to have got it all in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
I do think in terms of the Clara comparison, I think a big difference is that I know you said that the Doctor seemed to be checking out, trying to discover what the mystery was, but I didn't get the sense that extended any further than the Goblin situation itself. I didn't get the feeling that he thinks that there's some big, huge mystery behind her, which is actually, I think it's a key difference with things like Clara, because particularly when Moffat was there, there was a thing that, even the Doctor was saying that he always knew that there was something off with Amy because of the duck pond. Like, why was she in a house that was so big that there was a reason why he invited her to travel with him? And I think that's kind of a key difference where you feel like Ruby's backstory is going to come into play at some point in creating an arc, but it feels very different. Like almost, not to overstate it, but a little less creepy, if you like, that you don't have this situation where the Doctor obviously knows things about his companion that he's not telling her.
Well, I think he didn't know. He's not known things that he's not telling her, because I mean, the beginning set of the episode is actually not is in the wrong time, where the once upon a time thing and the mother dropping the baby off. That Doctor is from the future, where he's gone back to try and fix the problem after Ruby disappears. So he's not the Doctor just before he went into the club, right? So he's that Doctor. So I don't think he knew about the goblins before he went and saw Ruby in the club. I think there was just something that was attracting him to her, in a sense. So that's the way I took it. Is he didn't actually know about Ruby until he went in there, stood there for a few minutes, and then kind of honed in on her in the next night.
Yeah, I think more than most episodes in recent years, certainly, the Doctor's kind of learning as he goes, and is very clear that, you know, he's understanding how the rope network works within the Goblin ship, and he's trying to understand their language of coincidence and luck that, you know, the Goblins are trying to manipulate, because that's what they feed off. And it's those sorts of ideas about, oh, he's not actually got a plan specifically for this situation. He's making it. Well, he's not making it up, but he's, you know, learning as he goes and reacting to that, which was quite refreshing, actually.
Yeah, well, I think the universe has changed. I think I wrote that up in the review. This isn't in the past. It's been like the Doctor is just somewhere, some character in our universe that we just don't see. But I don't think this universe is the same universe that we're living in right now, in a sense, because the language of luck and the language of ropes and the fairy tale aspect of it, it seems like it's done a change, and we're now seeing more of a fairy tale version instead of pseudoscience per se. I mean, learning the language of luck, the idea that he put salt down in the 60th anniversary, and that's changed the world, and the toy maker saying that all his associates, was it, or something like that, are going to come back. Okay. Legions are going to come back. So I think this is a different universe than the pseudoscience Doctor Who that we've had for the last 60 years. That's what I would comment on, because the language of luck and the physics of ropes, was it? Well, ropes have physics to them, but a new physics that he was talking about.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that in some of the pre-publicity build-up, some interviews that were given, you know, there is clearly an indication that we're leaning now. Doctor Who's gone into a more fantastical
fantasy
era, shall we say? Yeah, you know, a bit more fantasy, a bit more of, you know, creatures such as goblins and things of that nature coming up. So it's quite interesting. We'll see how far it goes and whether it continues. Welcome to everyone watching in live on YouTube. Feel free to join in the conversation as well. Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought as we go through and pick apart the Church on Ruby Road. But we've obviously talked about our two leads. How do you think they worked together as a pairing, Peter? They're, you know, do they stand up to a Tom Baker and Liz Sladen, a Matt Smith and Karen Gillan? Where do you rank them up?
I think they were immediately pretty magical. I think the only actually, I think this was the first episode that they filmed, which almost you know, you wouldn't think it was the first episode that they filmed. You'd almost think that this was filmed out of order and that they'd already been filming together for months. They just instantly hit it off, and they seem like they've known each other forever. You know, they just work really well together. It's an immediate partnership and friendship that I think works really well. And if it's missing anything, it is that sense of you don't quite have that feeling of them not knowing who each other are and trying to figure it out. They just sort of immediately cop on as to what sort of person the other is, and immediately just go with it. Very happy, but I think they work really, really well together. And part of it, I think, is, I mean, in Ncuti's case, it is unusual that this is his first proper episode as the Doctor, but like he has gotten, I don't know how long the back end of the giggle was, but he's already had something like 20 minutes on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really unusual to have a sort of like a first episode where the Doctor is just immediately himself and hits the ground running, and there's no sort of trying to figure out who he is. I mean, there's certainly no sitting around Picaldi style going like, am I a good man, trying to figure out who he is. I mean, that the 12th Doctor probably spent about 2 seasons trying to figure out who he was before he decided. And this Doctor just seems immediately comfortable in his skin and knows exactly who he is.
Well, he said that in the he knew exactly who he was. Unusual, as you said, because even if you go back through Matt Smith and Jodie Whittaker and essentially and Peter Capaldi, as you said, for 2 seasons, they've all trying to figure out who they were for a bit. So I think they needed that because they had 2 new leads, not just one. And in general, they've been switching. Well, they did it with Jodie. She got all her new leads as well. But it's unusual to switch the whole deck out. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of builds into this. This is a season 1, soft reboot of Doctor Who as a brand, as a show, new on Disney Plus. On BBC iPlayer in the UK, it's described as 2023 onwards. This is a fresh starting point. So, it's a new combination and is going in a fresh direction, as we've already mentioned.
I did notice on the iPlayer somewhere it said season 1, episode 1. I can't remember where it was, but it did say it on iPlayer once when I was looking at it. And certainly the 60th had 0 in episode 1, 2, 3. So it was a bit odd. Okay, I know I'm actually not that worried about the season rebooting numbers and things like that. It's sort of irrelevant. I go by Doctor numbers.
They were always seasons, and now we're back to seasons. So.
They were seasons at the start, and then when it came back in the reboot, they turned to series, and then now they've gone back to seasons, and it's sort of a dramatic change putting Disney in the mix for the rest of the world. So I can see why you'd want to call it season 1 again. For putting it on Disney. Makes sense.
I think even without Disney, there's the factor that it's a new production company, basically. Like, it's moved out of BBC Wales now. It's a Bad Wolf production making it. So maybe even just from that context, from a contractual point of view, it might just be simpler to say this is season 1 where we're contracting you from season 1 going forwards, and to help make a break with any ongoing contracts that they had, to say like, okay, that contract is over now because that show is over. This is technically a new show.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though when you go through the production people who are in it going like, and everybody from BBC Cardiff moved over to Bad Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, didn't they do a similar thing with what was Series 5, the Matt Smith era? I think on clapperboards and whatever, they refer to it as Series 1.
They tried, they did.
Yeah, so it's not unheard of. It's just because, as we mentioned, Disney Plus and, iPlayer changes and things like that. It's just, it's a new era, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Of all things to get uptight about, that isn't one of them on my list of things.
No,
except about how we do on the quiz of Rassilon, trying to figure out what the number is. Okay.
Yeah, we're waiting for them to bring back the production codes. That's what we want.
Yeah, bring out the production codes, and then we'll be really happy.
We're doing anagrams. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a feeling Peter's frozen or lost his signal here because he hasn't moved in about. Oh, there we
I
go.
think he's lost his signal. So now we stall for a few minutes now.
We'll milk it. It's fine.
Okay. Milk it. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So let's move on to the sort of gobbling element, because we obviously had the song, the Goblin King. I think that was the title of it. Music video, which was basically just segment of that.
Mhm. There we go. He's back.
Sorry. Technical issues.
Lost the picture, but the goblins have struck.
Yeah.
You are frozen in time, but hopefully not in a bad position. Yes, that's good.
Okay.
Oh,
Why is
it's like
that?
degenerating. That's
Okay.
intriguing.
Okay, you guys go.
We'll leave Peter regenerating and keep on talking. Okay.
We'll keep talking. Yeah. So the goblins. The musical song and dance, shall we say, about eating Lulubelle. That was intriguing.
I think the more intriguing part is I think music is going to play more. They have more budget, and obviously with the touch by whatever it was, I can't. It's a modern song that they've put in there. They did have Tainted Love, if you remember, with the Ninth Doctor at the end of the world. But I get the impression, since we're going to have the Beatles, okay, and a few other odds and ends stuff, we're basically going to have music that is known to everyone because they can pay for it. Unless they have another disaster, like a number of shows that I know about can't air that show anymore because we don't have the rights to the music. Yeah, it's I think it's not just the Goblin song. I think there's going to be a jukebox there with music, and it's all going to be integrated into Doctor Who because Russell T Davies seems to be very excited about having music and clubs and the whole thing. So that's where I think we're going. So I don't think it's just related to the Goblins, although I thought that was a trying to get Christmas #1 thing.
Yeah, I did like SFX. I got a closer look when they were on their set tour. They got a closer look at the jukebox.
Yes.
So they're able to see some of the songs that were on it. And one of the things on its playlist is John Smith and the Common Men. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll actually get to hear that at some point. That would be very cool to hear playing into TARDIS again. Of course, that was just a library track that they just dragged out.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be a problem rights-wise to play it again.
Hopefully not. Okay. But I think you're going to see more music in this series. It's certainly more modern music that's going to be tied into, or even old music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously we've got lots of Murray Gold. I thought, there's quite a lot of Murray Gold score throughout. The music doesn't really let up at all. It's all the way through. But a lot of people have sort of shivered in revulsion at the idea of the Doctor singing to the Goblin King or whatever. But for me, it kind of fit the context of
where they were
going on, because they were, Goblins were having a song and dance about it, and it kind of made sense in terms of their escape because it's a distraction tactic.
Stalling tactic. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't look comfortable singing.
No, they didn't really. No.
Yeah, I did like that story from Unleashed that apparently they kept expecting to be called in to a studio somewhere to record their song, and then lip sync to it on the day, and the day just kept getting closer and closer, and nobody was calling them to record it, and so it did turn out that Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson turned up on the set on the day, and they were like, okay, so now you sing the song live and we will record it off the regular microphones, same as the dialogue, which I guess must have been pretty intimidating, even though I'm sure, it's part of the concept of it. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're actors and performers. So even though,
Yeah.
in the context of the story, it doesn't have to be perfect anyway, because you're just making it up as you go along. But they're still not going to want to sound terrible.
Yeah, the actors are not going to want to sound terrible. Maybe I couldn't see one key.
I mean, from a directing point of view, you don't want it to look too polished because it's supposed to be off the cuff.
It didn't look too polished. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what you want, really, isn't it? I would have thought if it was too over rehearsed and a perfect rendition of their song, then it wouldn't have rang as true as it did in the fake reality of the situation, I suppose.
And it did sound like picking up the lines.
I did like lyrics wise though how the Doctor's actually scans really well, because I mean, I guess, well, first of all, he's a genius and he's used to just improvising his way out of situations anyway. Like singing his way out of a situation isn't that different from talking his way out of a situation. He does that all the time. But then when it's Ruby's turn, she sort of cheats more, like the lyrics of her bit, like she rhymes you with you. Or she even something like she rhymes you with, oh yeah, pleased to meet you. She rhymes with diddly deet you, which doesn't mean anything. But like it's more obvious that like she is just like not knowing what she's doing and just trying to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of I'm sorry. I think there were a lot of good little things like that made it humorous in the episode. And I do think those kind of impromptu they seem impromptu, but they're not. They're written into the Davis's script, and he does a very good job for that in any of the shows he does. And I think that kind of humor has been missing, that feels kind of off kilter and things like that. And I think that was one of the things that was standing out in the episode.
Yeah, Doctor Who's always struggled with this balance between the humor and some quite dark subject matter. I wasn't a massive fan of the Goblin King song, if I'm honest, because it's so against the idea of them preparing to eat a small human. It's not exactly what I expected on a Christmas Day cheery kind of adventure. It was quite dark, really, and I think I preferred some of the lines, as you say, Peter, in The Doctor and Ruby compared to what the Goblins were singing, because some of it just made no sense and was a bit all over the place. But it fitted, the environment and this sort of more fantastical feel that we're going for with the show.
Yeah.
I was sort of expecting a bit of he's behind you. It was a bit more of a panto type thing.
Yeah,
more a bit panto. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Although one thing about the goblins that fascinates me that I kind of wanted to raise is that they're not really goblins. Like, they don't act very goblin-y. They're much more like gremlins. And that the whole thing of with the World War II pilots, that came about because they were saying oh yeah, there's these little creatures that they live in the sky, and when you're flying in the sky, they board your plane, and then they start to mess around with stuff and break machinery and make things go wrong, and that's why planes are crashing or things aren't where you left them. And so that's they seemed much more like gremlins. But then when I was curious about that, I looked it up, and apparently the makers of Warner Brothers, that own the rights to the Gremlins movies, since 2021, they've been arguing that they just own the word outright.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've been arguing that in court. I don't know how far they've gotten with it, but I can almost imagine an early draft of the script that called them Gremlins throughout, and then maybe someone at the knowledgeable Disney lawyer side went, "Oh, don't do that.
We'll stay away from that." Yeah.
I mean, we might win that case, but let's not do that anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to talk about the goblins because I thought they were largely ineffectual, but hearing you describe them as gremlins and more mischievous and trying to cause, accidents and whatever for their own amusement kind of makes more sense. Whereas actually it got a bit overly complicated with their ability to go back in time and the fact that they just, apparently one baby was going to feed hundreds of them, despite the size of the Goblin King and all this. I felt they were a bit confused in their sort of portrayal, and we weren't really clear in terms of what kind of threat they were, unless you were a small child or happened to be someone that had a lot of luck and coincidence in their life. I don't think the goblins were great, if I'm honest. Susan, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, I don't think they were the main part of the story. The main part of the story was Ruby and the Doctor. Okay, I'm setting up the premise for season 1. So, I mean, they were there for a cute song in a sense, and stealing the baby, so that the Doctor and Ruby got together, and we got the question about Ruby's story. So it's sort of one of those harmless things that's in Doctor Who, except it would be kind of a little bit scary for kids and things. And as far as them eating the baby, I mean, we go Hansel and Gretel and all the other original fairy tales seem to be eating a lot of kids somewhere in one way or another. So they sort of, like Little Red Riding Hood and Big Bad Wolf and all that other stuff. So I think they just were playing into the fairy tale aspect, fantasy aspect of the story. So, I mean, it was cute to watch them sing, but we already saw the song beforehand. So I was sort of hoping they'd get through that quicker, because I'd seen it a couple of times. And I mean, they're not the main, they were just a plot device, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Peter, thoughts on the goblins?
I mean, I would go along with Susan that with this type of episode, it's the double whammy of it being an introduction episode for a new Doctor and Companion, and it being Christmas. That, I mean, I know Rusty Davis has said in the past that, a key thing with the Christmas specials is that they have to be, it's not just the fans that have to be able to follow it. It has to be their uncle that's like half asleep, half in a coma on the couch after 3 helpings of Christmas pudding as well. That you can't go complicated on a Christmas special. It has to be simple enough that no one is going, wait, who is that? And what? I mean, arguably he was even pushing it with the whole the final scene being the first scene again of going back in time to Ruby. But I mean, the goblins are kind of they're a nothing monster and a nothing threat, but that's kind of all that you need. I do think that it is, I mean, that mem goes, I think it's weird that the Doctor has twice impaled that, if I had a nickel for every time the Doctor has impaled a giant version of a mythical monster through the heart with the spire of an entire building, I'd have 2 nickels. But it's weird that it's happened twice, because he did that with the Great Vampire as well in the 4th Doctor's era. It's basically the same ending of, how am I going to solve this problem with this giant monster? I'll chuck a building at it.
Yeah, in fairness, the Goblin King, creation, I think if you've watched Unleashed, 4 separate people just to operate it inside, and then you've got someone separately with the remote control, the animatronics. It was quite an impressive creation, but I was not expecting a violent impaling on a church spire to help my Christmas dinner go down. I'll be honest, but
due to some special gloves that appeared to solve problems.
Oh, I loved that though. I loved the Mavity the gloves. Because apart from anything else, I'm a big defender of some things in Doctor Who that lots of other people don't like. I'm a big defender of the sonic screwdriver because I think it actually hardly ever actually changes the plot. It just gives him something to wave around where if you didn't write it in the script, you just press some buttons instead. But at the same time, I love seeing the Doctor come up with new stuff I actually hope they stick around, because it's not really since the psychic paper when he suddenly just produced I have lots of stuff in my pockets, here's some psychic paper. That apparently Rusty Davis never intended to appear again. He just was only going to use that in one script, and then Stephen Moffat really took to it and started putting it in all his scripts, and so sort of like went back in time. But yeah, no, I like the idea of like every episode or every couple of episodes, if the Doctor just pulls out something new, oh, this is the latest thing that I've invented, this is the newest thing that I've come up with, or the newest bit of alien weirdness I found somewhere, rather than it just being the Sonic all of the time.
Has to go ding somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it when he has new stuff. And the concept of the Mavity gloves is, I love it. Plus, it's still Mavity, even though technically Mavity makes no sense because it's not like.
Yeah.
That's the universe change part. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not like Newton's or like just made up a random word. It's like it's based on a pre-existing Latin word. So I don't know where Mavity came from.
No, but anyway.
No.
But you're being too scientific there and logical.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You know, we spoke about how this new era is more fantastical, more fantasy, and we do have a very scientific based, if not, you know, in reality, but a scientific idea of gloves that, you know, can have this effect and change, you know, your grip on a ladder if you're climbing up it, or, you know, the gravitational force that you can provide, all that sort of stuff. I think is, you know, an interesting scientific concept, which goes slightly against the fantasy realm that we seem to be in. But
okay, so my fantasy realm is getting.
But I'm not. I mean, I like that. I mean, if we take it as an idea that the Doctor will always be a science hero, even when he's taking on fantastical things, then I think that still kind of works. And to an extent, I mean, when you take with the goblins, the only difference really between that and previous approaches is that they don't bother having the Doctor come up with some form of words to pretend that they're not goblins. You know, I mean, it gets. I mean, at times in the past, it's gotten ridiculous. Like one of my. I do like the Damons, the Third Doctor John Pertwee serial. I do like it a lot, but like I also just have to laugh at the way that the Doctor explains very firmly, is very cross about this idea that witchcraft exists, then explains something pseudoscientific that is exactly like witchcraft, and then goes, but that's completely different.
Yeah, science.
Yeah, and he's doing this while still lambasting. Like anyone who believes in witchcraft is an empty-headed idiot. It's just psychic projection of powers passed down through the DNA.
DNA, all the other stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's almost I almost kind of prefer for them to just go. Yeah, this is what that is called. It is the thing that you've also. It is the the big horned beast thing is the devil or whatever, rather than just put needless pseudoscientific stuff on top of it.
Yeah, but that brought us back to the church on Ruby Road, and I think we're gonna see this bit again, aren't we? Realistically, we're gonna have some sort of, I don't know, revisiting or whatever it might be of this scene, and baby Ruby being left on the church step, and
who left her?
Yeah, who was the person that left her? That sort of thing. It's going to come up again, surely, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's no DNA throughout the whole Earth base, whatever. So they're sort of implying that there's something odd about her.
I mean, personally, I'd love for this person to be Davina McCall. That'd be tremendously timey-wimey and some wonderful. That would be a great effort to try and round that circle off. But
okay, of all the wild suggestions, and there have been loads of wild suggestions about who that might be, that is quite possibly the wildest and also my favorite.
One I've heard, yes. Okay, I have heard the 13th Doctor because she has the hood on. I
think there's been the 13th Doctor. There's been Missy. There's been Ruby herself. Obviously, is is really popular, even though you can almost hear Christopher Eccleston screaming, "Don't touch the baby!" at her.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these
or
boots,
young Mrs. Flood, I think is another guess.
Yeah, I mean,
of course, anytime an unidentified female shows up in Doctor Who, people are going, "The Rani!"
Yeah.
So at some point, I guess they have to be right.
Yeah, I do wonder if those boots, you know, and the cut of those trousers could be a Jodie Whittaker.
I was trying to figure that out if
costume,
those were trousers or a long skirt, because I didn't go back and have a look, but I was wondering if it's because of the cut of those. I thought they were trousers to start off with, and if that's the case, they looked a lot like Jodie Whittaker's kit.
I mean, that would be great. I mean, that would beat Davina McCall for me if it was a Jodie Whittaker. Yeah, but as you know, just Jordan. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Mrs. Flood as well. You know, going to be something that weaves through the season, I think. So if we're going to do wild speculation, then yeah, who's Mrs. Flood?
The Rani.
The Rani. That's what I was going for. I even wrote that up. Okay, didn't I?
It's more of a running gag at this stage. It's hard. It's that sort of question is hard because, I mean, I guess people have more access than ever before to past Doctor Who, but it's the balance of you want it to be, is it going to be someone that at the end of the day, most of the audience go who when they reveal who it is. So I feel like it can't be someone that goes back that far, unless they start to plant the seeds to let you know who they might be during the season.
Like the Master.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought the way that when the Master came back in series 3, they played it very well. That like it wasn't up until the point, it was all just in the look on the Doctor's face when it looked like it was another Time Lord, and then he looked absolutely horrified by the idea that it was another Time Lord. While Martha was just going, but that's good, right? It's good that there's another Time Lord. And he's like, it depends on the Time Lord.
Depends on the Time Lord. Yeah.
So I think that worked really well. So I don't know how they'd handle it. It feels like it couldn't quite be someone that that we haven't seen in decades, unless they do a lot of work to reintroduce the idea of why that's an interesting thing. I mean, if she was to suddenly turn around and say like, "I am Omega," then like, a bunch of the audience would be going like, "I don't understand why that's important."
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it just bemused me why she was just sat out there in the cold anyway, just watching things go by. Surely she's got
unaffected by the cold, Time Lord.
Yeah. Exactly. She's only got hat. Maybe she's got a Lavarti jumper on underneath, and she's plenty warm. Who knows?
I don't know.
I think it's that. As soon as you introduce a female mystery character, everyone jumps to the Rani, or maybe an older regeneration of Romana. It's that sort of stuff. I don't know, but I think it's intriguing, and it's another hook to get you watching the series proper, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be anyone that we've seen before. She could, if she was just revealed as one of those legions that the Toymaker was talking about, then that in itself. I mean, the fact that there is someone hanging around on Ruby Street, where her family and her home base is, that obviously knows more than they're telling. Is it? I mean, in a way, that's enough, really, of a mystery.
And knows what a TARDIS is. That's that was throwing the whatever. So she knows what a TARDIS is.
Although breaking the fourth wall by addressing the viewer directly, that was bold.
Yes.
But it was Christmas Day, and if you're going to do it on Christmas Day. Is Doctor Who's tradition.
Sometimes I was going to say, sometimes that's just a matter of where you put the camera, though, because everyone that talks to themselves, depending on where you put anytime you've got anyone talking to themselves in a television program, them breaking the fourth wall is just a matter of where you put the camera.
Yeah, it's like the 12th Doctor explaining the bootstrap paradox in the pre-titles and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I watched Imagine, and there were on Russell T Davis, and there were a bunch of other programs, the Bob and Rose thing that I pulled up, and then I'm going, that line's from Doctor Who, and that line's from Doctor Who. Yeah. So maybe it's Rose. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so we mentioned sort of Ruby going into the TARDIS. I thought that was a really nice scene. We've seen lots of variations of the companion discovering the TARDIS and, you know, going in there for the first time and bigger on the inside and all that sort of stuff. But I thought this was, you know, a really nice version of that scene. Peter, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the like really going back to the start, like back in Rose, the whole circling the police box from outside and going in. I always think that's a really effective way to do it. I mean, the new interior, that must be completely mind blowing. Because I mean, we're a far cry from, we're a far cry from Ian and Barbara going, oh, this couldn't fit inside a police box, could it? To actually feeling like it must feel like you've walked into a completely other universe entirely. It's just massive in there. So I don't know how she held it together at all, to be honest, walking into the TARDIS this time. And of course, the Doctor, as is the Doctor's nature, he's actually found a place to pose nonchalantly, as if he's not deliberately posing there to look cool as she walks through the door, which is very Doctor.
Yeah. Who am I? I'm the Doctor. Okay. Yeah. Very. Yeah. Let's go. Here's the vein. Oh, this is the thing that I was missing with the Jodie Whittaker's character, is she wasn't quite vain enough for the Doctor role.
Okay.
This vanity is back. Okay. Because the Doctor always was very vain for all his roles, and Whittaker's character didn't have that kind of vanity. I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm the, you know what I mean. I'm standing here cool. Okay, so he definitely did that well. I found my posing spot.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've mentioned it about the Doctor's supposed to be the smartest person in the room. And, you know, that's kind of been belittled in the last couple of episodes with, you know, particularly in the Star Beast, where, you know, male presenting Time Lord, you don't understand this. I think it'd be nice if we can get back to, well, the Doctor is the smartest person because he has centuries of experience of, you know, seeing different things around the universe and understanding what's going on more than we as viewers, and the companion who is our conduit into the show. You know, hopefully we'll get a bit more back to that. Is just, you know, my take on that.
Yeah, I think the other thing that they were trying to portray was the 10th, 14th David Tennant Doctor has mental health problems. So he's got the confidence that in the 14th Doctor the 10th had. So that's what I took out of that. But the kind of slightly arrogant, he is a Time Lord. Okay, he does come from Gallifrey. He is part of the posh thing, as what was it? Clara's boyfriend did say, you know, yes, sir. He is Lord on it, not guy who cleaned the buckets at the back of it. Right. So that kind of arrogance was there with Ncuti, and I thought he pulled it off well. Okay. I don't like the mustache. I understand it was because he was supposed to be he wanted something there to say he wasn't a teenager anymore, but he doesn't need it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway.
I think this is, I am pretty sure this is one of the episodes where it's actually in the finest Brigadier tradition. It's a stuck-on mustache.
Okay, fair enough.
It is apparently, yes.
Because I think naturally himself in his own life he wears a mustache, but he had to keep shaving it for sex education. And this started filming too soon after that for him to be able to grow it back. So
Okay.
in the first couple of episodes, he's wearing a fake one while his own one is growing back.
He comes off as a teenager in Sex Education, but he doesn't come off as a teenager here. Okay, so so he doesn't need it, except maybe he needed it for his own persona type thing. But that was why he said he grew it in one of the was it Unleashed or something or other?
Yeah,
or stuck it on or something or other.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ncuti's just a ball of energy, really. You know, not just the running across the rooftops and just every scene where he's delivering dialogue. There's just an energy about him, which is fantastic. And yeah, looking forward to seeing a bit more of it. Now, Peter, you're our numbers man. So in terms of the overnights, there's a slight increase compared to the Giggle. Obvious comparisons are being made with previous Christmas specials, you know, Voyage of the Damned with massive viewing figures and all that sort of thing. But, you know, the world's not there. And it was the third most watched program in the whole of the UK, the most watched drama, I think, you know, for the festive period. So can you put these numbers into context for us? Because it's a very different landscape.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very different landscape, and I think in the article that I wrote on the viewing figures, I think I summed it up by basically saying that the reason Doctor Who seems to be so valuable now to the BBC is that it's not immune to these changes, but it is far more resistant to them than most shows. When you compare this Christmas special, because it actually gives you a great little snapshot of it. That this is our first Christmas special since 2017, and there's lots of shows that do Christmas specials, so you can actually compare them each to each other. So, you know, in 2017, Twice Upon a Time, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but basically, Doctor Who is down 14% since 2017, which is like a slight dip. But then you look at other shows, like I think the Strictly special was down 20%. Call the Midwife is down 30% since its 2017 special. And when you look at the soaps, like they're down something like 45 to 50%, like Emmerdale and Coronation Street and EastEnders and all those shows over that period of 60 years. Or sorry, not 60 years, 6 years on the brain. 6 years. Over that period of 6 years, basically their audiences have halved on Christmas Day, while Doctor Who's is dipped slightly. So, I mean, I think that's the key difference there. And it is looking like I don't think we don't have the official weekly numbers yet, but we have a good sense of what they are. And it's looking like Doctor Who is, again, it's going to put on another good, healthy time shift. And it looks like we're going to wind up, I think it's 5th for the week. We're 5th for Christmas week. And that includes, by the way, which I think is ludicrous. Like, this is in all my looking at viewing figures, it is the wildest thing that I've seen, that the BBC New Year's Eve show, where, you know, like, it's a different person every year, but like this year it was Rick Astley doing like a bit of a concert, and then they give a break so you can go over to Big Ben to watch the Bongs at midnight and toast everyone, and then it goes back to Rick Astley finishing off his concert. That's 3 separate programs according to the listings. So they take the top 3 slots. Oh no, they take slots 2 to 4 of the week. The King's Speech was the most watched thing, and then their slots 2 to 4, even though realistically it's just one program as far as I'm concerned. And then it's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really healthy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the overnights for Christmas Day, you know, it's quite a bad list for ITV in particular. You know, they had one show in the top 10, you know, not including, you know, The King, who's on every channel from 3 o'clock. And yeah, as you say, they're sort of, you know, standout soaps. Coronation Street, Emmerdale have 40 to 50% drops in their overnights alone. So yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating topic, and it's something I think we will talk about quite a lot as we go on. Just Jordan's commented. Do you just think it's because people are aware that they can go back and watch shows? So,
I think so.
It's less of the, sit and watch it live.
But myself, in our house, we actually don't watch broadcast. We watched it on iPlayer when we watched it. So we wouldn't count as a broadcast number anyway. So we'll watch it live, which is about a 30 seconds behind when you watch it on iPlayer. So if you're wanting your football match, don't listen to the radio, watch the broadcast, because it's about somewhere between a 2-minute separation. But we just watch that because we have an Apple TV, and we just go to BBC iPlayer and watch there, and iTV is the same, and whatever. So we don't watch through our antenna or cable, which we don't have. We don't have Sky or anything like that. We just pick what we're going to watch. So I think there's a number of people like me, and certainly I don't hear of any university students really having. There's not university students getting a Sky broadcast. They're sitting there watching it on their laptop type thing. So I think that's changed. My daughter, I don't think, watches broadcast on anything. So I think you need to just kind of work that out. So it's not even if it's live, it's I think it's also you can watch it on iPlayer, and I can pause it if somebody comes in at Christmas, says the gravy's boiling over, you got to come now. You know what I mean?
So I think Doctor Who, as you've highlighted, Peter, it kind of bucks the trend, really, because it is one of those shows that you do want to watch almost as close to broadcast as you can, because there'll be spoilers and there'll be conversation on social media and video clips and whatever. So do you think that kind of factors into it as well?
Well, I think there's two halves of the story. The first half is that, yes, it's definitely a factor that people are aware that they can catch up later. And I think people forget as well that the ability to catch up has improved. It used to be that a show would only be on iPlayer for a week after it broadcast, and then they take it off iPlayer. And now I think they stretch it to a month, and now I think it's almost a year. I think the current episodes of Doctor Who,
it went to 28 days, and then it became a year now, I think.
So I mean that awareness of like, it's not convenient for me to watch it right now, but I know I can watch it next week or whenever, I think that's a factor in the time shifting. And we're seeing time shifting like we've never seen before. Again, the figures aren't officially out yet, but it looks like the Star Beasts, the Star Beasts 28-day figure, which is the final official figure, is going to be around 9.5 million. So about half of its audience came from time shifting in the end that didn't watch it on the day. Half the audience watched it on the day, half the audience time shifted it, which is massive. So I think that's a big part of it. Audiences, even despite that, are slightly smaller, regardless. And stuff like, the soaps won't pick up a lot of, like, when we're talking about the soaps cutting their audiences by 50%, it's not going to get all of that back over the next 28 days. Because apart from anything else with soaps, I think soaps are really vulnerable to the fact that the pace of it is too much. It goes too fast. Once you've missed 2 or 3 episodes, you're not going to try and catch up. You're not going to go back and watch them. You're just going to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
They have the highlight shows. That's why they have them there for people to catch up. Here, emotion, somebody's dead and in the ditch.
There's 2 bits, like even accounting, even after all the time shifting, audiences are still down for a lot of shows quite a bit. And I think part of that is just the competition of media now. Partly streaming, not entirely streaming, because when you actually look at streaming being included in Barb numbers, which they are now, like the viewing figures will include them, any individual show there is, like, even the ones that are trumpeted a lot, like the Star Wars shows or the Marvel shows or any of those, they don't actually get massive viewing figures in the UK. I think at its height now, I'm saying this number even though I'm only really half remembering it. I think Squid Game got like 1 million viewers in the UK in total, but like it was considered like a massive hit. So it's almost
Yeah.
different rules for streamers, but they're not.
It's not just that.
Yeah.
I worked in the last job was coming up with percentages and numbers and things like this, and doing ad tech for Medium, whatever. What's happening is new audiences are actually watching clips. So they're actually watching the clips on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So they're not ever watching a full show. They're now going to kind of these little highlight things and watching the fun bits of it and not ever watching the full show. I mean, things like The Voice and Strictly and everything, they make much more out of the YouTube stuff and the ads that they get from the YouTube area. So we were in trying to figure out how we would put ads in help them put ads in streaming stuff and things like that, that they had on the Instagram and TikToks and iPlayers and things. But my daughter is a good example. She spends forever with memes, GIFs, and short little clips, but never completely watches the full show. I sort of, its attention span has deteriorated, so the whole episode is not coming as important anymore. It's these little short bursts of attention. I think that will change over time because it's a viewing audience that changes. But the introduction of TikTok and Instagram have made a huge break in storytelling, which is sort of sad because a 2-second or 5-second joke is not really that entertaining, and it's something that there's a lot of research into as to why it has deteriorated from a full story into
I mean, to make a similar comparison, I watch a lot of professional wrestling. There was a big event on Monday night. Monday Night Raw is every week, but it's a 3-hour show, over 3 hours. The big thing that happened this week was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson made a surprise appearance. Now that clip on YouTube will have done tens of millions of views.
Yes,
but that's only one segment of the 3-hour show.
That's
so it's these shorter clips tend to be what companies focus a lot on because it means they are generating traffic. It's just not the same as viewing figures. And
they're doing AI to identify which ones of those clips that you can actually put on TikTok and Instagram to get the whatever. So now we're talking about what I was doing for a job before for the last several years. But definitely the deviation is moving to those little clip type things as opposed to long shows. That doesn't mean it's everybody, but certainly the younger audiences between the ages of 14 and 25. Then I think you settle down into wanting to understand a little bit more, but there's a huge chunk of that audience has disappeared for little clips. Okay.
I mean, I think
that's really different.
Personally, I think it's a fascinating topic, and perhaps we'll do a specific.
Talk about it a long time if you want.
No, I mean, maybe we should do a whole episode where we just break down how viewing figures, and the numbers change because, Peter, you've looked into this quite a lot, and I just find it fascinating. So perhaps we'll do that in the future.
Yeah, and I always do think it's fascinating, but people read too much into it sometimes because it's almost like the performance of a sports team. You can read too much into it. Like with a sports team, it can be, ultimately the important questions are like, well, are we going to win the league? And if we don't win the league, are we going to get relegated? And everything between that is just a talking shop, really, in terms of what the fans talk about. Yeah. And it's kind of like the same in Doctor Who has never, since it came back, it's never been in danger of cancellation or even of, if the viewing figures stay like this for the next 5 years, then we'll be looking at canceling. Like, it's always had decent enough numbers, even at its lowest. So beyond that, it's really just, it's either patting ourselves on the back, even though we're only the fans, we didn't do anything to deserve it. when it gets really good numbers. And between those 2 points, it's just talking about it because it's interesting.
I think
people shouldn't get excited about it, really.
Well, it was actually interesting. We have got a lot of comments online and things like that, and at this point, I think the better approach is let everybody argue it amongst themselves online. They seem to be doing a good job of arguing it amongst themselves. But we're just taking numbers and doing statistics with it based on the background that we know and understand in terms of numbers. I mean, I spent forever going through this in the last 5 years in terms of justifying how much you're going to charge on ads and things. But there's a lot of analysis that's done to justify a point. It starts off, this episode was crap, and then it goes into okay, and it's because of these numbers, and you see what Tom Baker had overnight. And then you have to go through the analysis, understanding of all the changes that have happened and how the fragmentation of the market and the different source of media and everything like that to start being able to get an understanding and justify where it is. I mean, the place where that goes to is the justification of the cost of the ads that go on. And that is something that I'm deeply familiar with in the last 5 years. So we're not coming up with an agenda to prove. We're just basically saying that, and Peter's doing an excellent job, but we're basically saying that it is doing well even when it's doing badly. It is doing better than most things on the list. Because everything is going down, and that's something that has even existed in Jodie Whittaker's time, when people were saying this was the worst thing since sliced bread, whatever. But it's doing well, and it has always done well. It does seem to get a lightning rod on the woke stuff, which I don't understand why people say that, because the show has been woke since the beginning of time. So created by a gay Indian director and a woman, when neither one of them were employable in 1963. So it's and a Canadian throw into the boot, none of which it's always been woke. I have complaints about the storytelling. That's what I kind of can go along. So that's my comment. I'm sticking to it. So you can all.
Yeah, I think it's a weird human need. I think to. You see, like from my point of view, you have to be able to say, I didn't like this, but it is inexplicably popular.
Yes.
Like you have to be able to, I mean, I don't understand the attraction of the Mission Impossible movies. I think they're terrible films, but I will concede that they will keep on making them because lots and lots of people disagree with me and really like paying their money to go see them. Like, I'm not going to sort of like try and fiddle the numbers to try and prove that they're doing really badly and not making their money back. But like sometimes people will start from, as you say, as you're saying, Susan, their starting point is, I liked / didn't like this. So now I'm going to find some way to prove that everyone else agrees with me, and anything that makes it look like other people don't agree with me is somehow a lie, which, you have to be able to just accept that. Yeah. And to be okay with the fact that your tastes might not be the same as everybody else's tastes. And if you like something that has never taken off and being really popular, then that's okay. Apart from the fact that maybe if they stopped making it because of that, which would suck. But or like if you didn't like something that is popular, it's okay. Maybe you don't understand why it's popular. Maybe you don't understand why millions of people were watching Mrs. Brown's Boys there every Christmas for a few years. But it's okay that other people did like it.
I'm a celebrity. Please cancel it.
Yes. Yeah, actually, that was one of the things that we got, that people were complaining that Doctor Who was failing in the ratings if it couldn't be I'm a Celebrity. And I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we can say that it doesn't make sense that I'm a Celebrity is so much more popular than everything else on television. It certainly doesn't help that when it's on 7 times a week, so it completely blocks out the whole top 10. But I mean, it is, and that's just the fact of life. There's no point in complaining about it.
And I've never watched one show of I'm a Celebrity get me out of here at all. I couldn't tell you what station it's on, but it is very popular. I haven't watched a full show of Strictly either. I've watched dancing things because there's talking in between, and I couldn't care less about it. And I watched the dance.
Maybe they put the dancing bits on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the dancing, and then that's it. I don't want to hear how they had a hard time getting ready for the.
Yeah,
I just want to see how they danced.
I mean, I think we've just barely scratched the surface on that kind of discussion, and perhaps it's something we'll save for another day. But I think overall, Church on Ruby Road is a thumbs up from us. And perhaps we'll be back and we'll break down the next time trailer as well, which is quite fun.
Yeah, we should do that one.
I think that might be the next time we stream. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone watching. If you are live streaming or if you're watching us back, please feel free to comment on the video, share, like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And we shall see you all again soon. Say bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.